is one of the reasons why I find the question of what do you believe so bizarre, right? Genuinely bizarre, and I think it would be good to feel that. Like there was a guy wanted me on his podcast recently, and he said, Pete, the problem with you is nobody knows what you believe. They read your books, they go to a whole day, and at the end they might go, oh, I enjoyed that, and then their friend says, what was it about? I have no idea. Well, what does Peter believe? I don't know. So he says, I want you to come on my podcast, and I want you to tell me what you believe, and I'm not going to let you weasel out of it. So I'm like, okay, I'm very happy to do that. I'm really happy to do that. But I'll tell you right now what I'll say is, I believe that I don't know what I believe, right? So, in other words, my consciousness is a defense mechanism generally to protect me from looking at what I really believe, right? That to come to know what you believe is an incredibly difficult thing. It takes years. You know, you might believe that you're successful and great and wonderful, but actually you hate yourself. It takes you years to see it. You might think that everybody of the opposite sex hates you. Now, of course, you don't believe that consciously. That would be a ridiculous thing to believe, but you believe it. It would be ridiculous to believe that a duvet cover, you call it, I say this and no one knows what I'm talking about. What's a duvet cover in America? You got that? You got duvet? I was told off the other day for saying it. Duvet cover. No one here believes that a duvet cover can protect you from knife attacks or make you invisible to intruders, right? But you do, right? As soon as you hear some noise downstairs, suddenly you're magical thinking the duvet cover is somehow going to protect you, right? You believe it. You just don't know you believe it. You don't believe in ghosts or monsters until the lights are out and you hear a creak under the bed and you have to look under the bed, or it's inside the airing cupboard and you have to creep over and look inside the airing cupboard. You don't believe in ghosts, but you do. You just don't know you believe in ghosts. This is interesting because, you know, in contemporary atheism, new atheism, kind of the boring atheism, there's some really good atheism out there. I do atheism for Lent, where we read the great atheistic critiques for Lent. It's not to judge them, it's to let them judge us. But anyway, some new atheists will say, right, people have magical thinking, right? They think magically. But underneath that, the world is rational, right? The world makes sense. So yeah, you believe in fairies and ghosts and goblins and angels and demons and all of that, but beneath that, you know, the world is sensible, ordered, cause and effect, whatever. But interestingly, both Nietzsche and Marx both said it's the other way around. Their critique of new atheism was, that type of thinking was, no. The problem for us today is we think we're rational and all of that, but beneath all of our rationality, we have all of this magical thinking going on, right? I was in a group, a secular group in Belfast, and I was doing a talk, and I started off the talk by saying, okay, who here believes in angels and demons, gods and devils? Virtually nobody. A few people remember, but virtually nobody. So you don't believe in any of that stuff, no. You don't believe in any of this weird, you know, goblins or fairies at the bottom of the garden or anything like that. You're materialist, right? Yes. Great. Okay. Well then, I want you to get a picture of someone you love on your mobile phone, right? You know, it might well work if you've got teenagers. You'll find out why in a second. But you know, if it's a young kid or whatever, you know, someone you love, that's great. And then I took out a piece of paper, and on the piece of paper was this 16th century satanic curse, right? The satanic curse basically is a way to curse somebody to make sure disaster befalls them. And you have to have something that reminds you of the person. So I'm like, okay, can somebody come up and say this curse over, you know, the loved one on the phone? Because, you know, you need to have to think about him. And it's like, there's nobody moving. I'm like, I'm not telling you what I believe. I'm telling you what you believe. I just checked it out, and you don't believe any of this stuff. You want to read this? And one of my friends who's there, he, you know, very secular guy, I'm like, will you do it? And he's like, no way. And I said, why? And I thought he'd say, because my wife would kill me or something like that. But he said, oh, no. I says, I don't like to do that. Like, words have power, right? Now, this is Belfast. This isn't LA, right, where people do believe that. This is Belfast. None of us believe that. So, and I know he definitely doesn't. If I'd said to him the other night, words have power, you know, if you say something terrible that will happen on the other side of the world, he would have laughed at that. He wouldn't believe that at all. Most of Northern Irish humour is slagging each other off. If we believed words had power, my goodness, we're cursing each other all the time. So I said, say it over me. This is the I thought he would do it. I said, just say the curse over me. And he's like, no, I won't do it. That's called rationalization. Rationalization is where he felt uneasy, and so his mind rushed to find a reason to justify his uneasiness. Now, the argument I was making, and by the way, like I was saying, I'll say it over myself. Some curse that I found on the internet and changed a few words to make it sound more sinister. That's going to do anything. It's ridiculous, right? But that's magical thinking. The people who can often think they're not magical thinking. We have magical thinking going on all the time. We're just not aware of it. And this is why I talk about atheism is not atheistic enough. It's called a fetish. A fetish is an object we know is not magical, but we treat it as if it is. Money can be a fetish. We know it's not a magical thing, but we treat it as if it's magical. You know, that car, we know it's not magical, but we treat it as if it is, like it's going to fix everything. It's going to make everything good. We have lots of magical objects in the world. And my argument is actually we have to get rid of that magical thinking. There was an experiment. Oh, no. I could talk for months, so I can't. I have to stop myself from going off in various directions. But the part of the point of saying that is, like, the people in that room didn't realize they still believed in a bizarre type of God, right? Now, the experiment, I'll mention it very quickly. I think it was in Finland. They got a group of atheists and a group of theists to say negative statements, neutral statements, and positive statements, evoking God, and then some not evoking God. The evoking God ones, a positive would be, I pray, I hope that God blesses my family. And a neutral would be, glasses help you see better. And a negative is, I hope that God kills everybody I love in a horrible fire, right? They were actually worse than that. They were really specific. I feel bad even saying it. They're really specific. And what they found, they wired everybody up, they found that atheists and theists both had the same level of anxiety and stress over evoking God to do terrible things to their families and their friends. And it wasn't connected with just saying terrible things, because when people said, I hope my family dies in a fire, the stress level was less than the evoking of God, right? So what they discovered is that these theists and these atheists both unconsciously still seem to believe in some sort of, supernatural being. Now, you might think, oh, the theists are more consistent, but I'm not sure, because if you have a belief in God, where if you say to God, oh, I wish you would kill my family in a fire, God would be like, I mean, that's a bizarre thing to ask for, but yeah, sure. If that's what you want, So that's a superstitious view of the divine that I don't think any of the participants would believe in. And if they did, I think that's the problem. But the point is, unconsciously they do. And if you don't confront your unconscious beliefs, they continue to act. In Northern Ireland, we kind of feel we're post-sectarian in many ways, but when there's job problems, whenever there's unemployment, whenever there's a lack of money, you realize that the sectarianism is still there. It hasn't been dealt with. It still kind of rises to the surface. All of that to say, we don't often know what we believe. Second of all, by the way, your beliefs, you may also, three things people say is, one is, I know what I believe. Two, my belief coheres with reality. And three, I want to talk about my beliefs and get other people to, maybe agree with me, right? But first one, no, I don't think I know. I don't think I'm transparent to myself. I don't think I really know what I believe. And sometimes I'm the last person to know what I believe. Secondly, I don't necessarily think that my beliefs cohere with reality. So you might believe the duvet cover will protect you from knife attacks, but you don't think that coheres with reality. You go like, yeah, I have that belief, because why do I have that belief? Because when I hear somebody coming, I put it over my head as if that's going to do some good. But I don't think that's right. So secondly, your beliefs don't necessarily need to cohere with reality. And thirdly, you don't necessarily want to propagate your beliefs. Some of us have the craziest, most terrible, dark, horrible beliefs. The last thing we want to do is throw them out there, Northern Ireland, I believe all Catholics are a little bit devious, right? Like, I don't want to spread that around. That's terrible. I want to get rid of that belief. I definitely don't want to go on to someone's podcast and talk about what I believe and get people to believe them as well. We have bizarre beliefs. And they start off when you're a kid, but what you learn is you learn to repress certain beliefs that are weird, which means you cover over them, you hide them with rationality, but they still continue to function. And So anyway, all I'd say, it's instead of Christianity as a set of beliefs is a bit weird. For me, Christianity is partly about exposing the beliefs that we have but we cannot face, right? That's what you see with the Pharisees. That's what you see Jesus often doing. Jesus is not telling people what to believe. He's drawing up to the surface the beliefs that are already existing but people aren't looking at, right? You go into a therapist and you have a dream where your brother is drowning and you're behind a sheet of glass. You can't do anything about it. You talk about this dream to your therapist. Well, what does the therapist say? Well, maybe they'll say, well, you felt awful. Yes, I felt terrible. You couldn't do anything. No, my brother was dying. I couldn't do anything. Well, it is your dream. Like, this isn't reality. Your brother wasn't really drowning in a lake. You put your brother there. And you put the glass sheet between you and your brother. This is your dream. It's not my dream. This is your dream. Maybe you wanted your brother to drown. Because, of course, I didn't want my brother to drown. I love my brother. Are you sure? I love my... Are you sure? Actually, I really hate him. You know, he destroyed my toys when I was a kid. But you don't even realize it yourself. So your truth comes out in your dream. And only as you listen to the dream do you begin to encounter the truth. And that's the symptom.